Warrior, Necromancer, Shaman. In this video, we will go over all the following. We're going to discuss how this combination's alternate advancement points work together, the stat priority through tributes, focus effects, and stats, current consumables and click items, how to adapt to the current content with spell sets, pet gear, weapons, and hotkeys, tactics for current capstones and custom content, and then last, we're going to go over tips and tricks to really step up your game with this build. How this combination's alternate advancement works together. These three builds come together within both melee attacks and casting spells. Utilizing alternate advancements such as Gut Punch, Press the Attack, are going to net you some truly massive auto attack damage. The dots using Cascade of Decay and Shamanic Tongue will also allow you to heal over time and provide you with a slow that is like a reverse 100 hands effect. What that means is that when you cast a dot on something, each time it has a tick every 6 seconds, it has a chance to proc either one of these or both. Cascade of Decay performs like a dot, and while it's ticking doing damage, it's also healing you. Shamanic Tongue applies a slow. That slow is actually a delay of their weapon as opposed to a slow in the classic sense. And it can land on anything, even things that are immune to changes in their attack speed. You also get Mallow, Mallozinate. Those two stack. You can cast them in whichever order, but they always stack. The Scent of Terrace, which stacks with the other two, thus allowing you to lower resistances to a crippling level and land spells that you might not otherwise be able to do. You get all this and heals, cures, and steroids. Things like Avatar, Leopard, Tenarg's Mending, Rabid Bear, Quiescence, and Remove Greater Curse. Some of the AAs I recommend that you start off with, depending on how you level. You can either go into a more dot-centric or an auto-attack-centric build as you level up. Eventually, you're obviously going to want to get all of these. You choose the way you want to play. I'm not going to tell you how to do that for you. AAs I recommend you get are Affliction Mastery, Blood Tithe, Cascade of Decay, Destructive Cascade, Flurry, Funeral Pyre, Greater Blood Tithe, Gut Punch, Rage of Ralosek, Warlord's Fury, Hand of Death, Ancestral Guard, Blade Guardian, Rabid Bear, Shamanic Tongue, Shield Specialist, Spiritual Blessing, Death Piece, Death Bloom, Cannibalization, Scent of Terrace, Turgor's Swarm, and Mallozinate. Utilizing these various different AA will either give you a boost in your offensive or defensive abilities. We should also note that out of disciplines, Mighty Strike and Defensive, as well as Furious, are very important. Mighty Strike makes it so that you crit 100% of the time. Defensive stance means that you take less damage over time. And Furious is a 100% chance to riposte incoming attacks. Current stat priority. Tributes, focus effects, and stats. First up, we're going to talk about the things that you want to pay attention to on each piece of gear. Heroic Strength above all else. Heroic Strength increases the attack damage that you make every melee attack. And this is probably the highest portion of your damage. It is a 1-for-1 ratio, 1% damage increase for every 1 heroic strength. Next up is mitigation. Mitigation is vitally important when you start trying to solo things like Saru, Zeb. Both of these bosses hit exponentially hard. The higher your mitigation is, the less you're going to have to heal yourself, the less mana you're going to have to waste. Then you're going to want to make sure that you max your spell damage so that your dots and your life taps are doing as much damage as possible. Then healing power, and then heroic dexterity. Healing power is going to really boost your direct heals, your heals over time, Rabid Bear, Quiescence, in addition to boosting some of your other healing methods as well. After that, you're going to look at heroic dexterity. This is going to increase your proc chance, your crit chance, and your chance to riposte or parry. Some focus effects you're going to want to pay attention to, and make sure that you have all of these either through equipped pieces of gear or through the tribute system. Reduced mana cost, beneficial reduced cast time, detrimental reduced cast time, detrimental reduced mana cost, reduced spell cast time, increased dot damage, increase dot duration, increase healing, increased spell damage, extended enhancement, increased spell cast range, and as a tribute to note, the Bulwark of Honor. This provides you with additional AC and thus mitigation. Current consumables and click items. For food, the Elvish Rations, which is a stat buff. For drink, the Elvish Hot Chocolate, which is also a stat buff. For potions, you have the Spider Bite, which any class can use and provides a poison DD proc. You also have the Fungus Covered Vial, which has Remove Greater Curse and a heal over time effect. For consumables, you have the Human Classic Milk Chocolate, which gives you plus 20 to all stat caps. And you have the Draken Ruby Swirled Chocolate, which provides you with a fire damage proc. For Sympathetic Strike, you're going to want to find a Hammer of Hours. For Sympathetic Healing, you're going to want to find a Shield of the Vortex or Shield of the Whirl. You also have access to a few click items, and within the recent history, click items saw a little bit of a nerf when it came to dots, but these two are still very good. The Shizar Death Speaker's Staff out of Vishan's Peak, and the Demi-Lich Skull Cap, which is a quested item. A very long quested item. You can receive Overhaste from the Silver Hoop of Speed, a proc buff from the Symbol of the Planemasters. You can also receive a proc buff from the Gloves of the Crimson Sigil or Orb of the Sky. They don't stack, so it's one or the other. One is fire, the other is magic. A disease cure by using the Shield of the Immaculate. A curse cure by utilizing the Black Flame Sphere. You can also receive bonus dodge from the Visage of the Dark Arachnids. You can receive bonus hit points and AC from the War Bear Saddle Mount and the Tiger Raptor Saddle Mount. Most recently, the Easter event also provided bunnies, in which the Gray Rabbit, as well as the Rabbit's Foot, provide a 25% spell damage increase that applies both to direct damage and to dots. Next up, we're going to talk about how to adapt to the content. Spell sets, pet gear, weapons, and hotkeys. So you can see here we have 3 separate spell bars. I wanted to provide you guys with what I personally use. However, this comes down entirely to personal preference. When just running around killing trash, it helps to have fast casting spells, fast casting dots, and things that are going to do a lot of damage over a short period of time, which is one of the reasons I choose poison. When you're doing AoE farming, either leveling items or getting AA or whatever the case may be, utilizing Infectious Cloud along with Word of Souls, Word of Spirit, Word of Shadow, and Tigger's Insects is going to net you the largest and fastest gains. Infectious Cloud is really important, especially because it can proc both Shamanic Tongue and Cascade of Decay. Pet gear. So there's a couple of different combinations you could go with here, but I personally enjoy using the Hammer of Holy Vengeance and Ragebringer, or the Kelp-Hilted Mace and a Ragebringer. However, the Kelp-Hilted Mace and a Shanai of the Ancients is also very strong. If you're doing something like Plane of Water and the Kornav fight, the Coral Hilted Talwar is hugely helpful in pulling absolutely everything in every single room and water. However, if you do use this, remember to take it off afterwards. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling entire zones on accident. I've done it many times. The weapon I recommend, at least for now during the Planes of Power expansion, is the Kelp-hilted Mace. It has 120 base damage and a huge proc. For hotkeys, I like to use these. 1. Battle Leap, Warlord's Fury, Gut Punch, Press the Attack, and Grappling Strike. And then in my other hotkey, I like to use Melozinet, Turgor Swarm, and Scent of Terrace. This allows me to debuff something with one and utilize all my melee cooldowns with another. They're all short cooldowns too, so I just mash that button pretty much throughout every fight. Tactics for current capstones and custom content. First up, we have Keraphim, the Sleeper. This is for farming prismatic scales. Honestly, this fight should be relatively simple. Go in, pop Mighty Strike, Rabid Bear, Unity, Ancestral Aid, and just liberally apply your weapon all over the dragon's face. Start throwing in a couple gut punches, press the attack, Warlord's Fury, loot your scales, and be happy. Next up is the Emperor Syrah. Now, I include him because, honestly, the Leopard spell is nigh impossible to get. I have now killed him 33 times without a single drop of Spirit of the Leopard. Spirit of the Leopard is a shaman spell, which grants you a proc, which does about 2,000 to 3,000 damage per proc, and it contributes about 400 to 500 DPS to the build. It's not game breaking, but it's nice to have all the same. So when you engage the Emperor, you're going to need to have the Syrah Bane fragment, either from Saru or you buy one on the Bazaar, or you can use a corrupted Shizar weapon, which you can get from an elite Shizar guard, and then you combine that with a green metal shard, which you obtain from a named skeleton in the mines underneath Syrah. You'll want to equip fire dots for the Emperor and remove Greater Curse. Save your cooldowns for directly after you're cursed, cure yourself, and just dump all of your damage. Dots, auto attacks, Mighty Strike, Rabid Bear, Gut Punch, Press the Attack, the whole nine, and you should burn him up relatively quickly. Next up is Lord Inquisitor Saru. This is for farming the Fragments of Truth. First and foremost, you're going to want to load up disease dots in place of pretty much everything but your tap. Disease dots have longer durations, and so you will have to cast fewer spells, thus meaning fewer things bounced back at you, and wasting less mana. When Saru is near 80%, 60%, or 40%, he spawns an ad. When this happens, cast Quiescence on yourself and prepare to cast Remove Greater Curse so you can remove the mana drain. Use the same cooldowns as we've listed with the other bosses, along with Blade Guardian, and it may be a long fight, but you'll definitely be able to solo him down. I don't have the best in slot, but this fight typically takes me about 5 minutes. Zabuxaruk. This is for farming Splinters of Time, as well as the Reforged Sword of Truth. He's the hardest content in the game as of right now, and honestly, things like Shamanistic Curse and Cascade of Decay are going to be the real bread and butter and true winners of this fight. You want to make sure you use a dot, something like Disease Cloud, that does almost no damage, but lasts for 16 minutes. You're going to want to put that on Zeb, while also putting a bunch of dots on whatever the ad that spawns is. The reason being is that, once again, you want Shamanistic Curse and Cascade of Decay to proc, and they both proc on dot tick. So with that Disease Cloud up, you're almost ensuring that your Cascade of Decay and Shamanistic Curse are on him at all times. When you know an ad is about to spawn at every 5%, cast Quiescence on yourself, use Saren's Kiss on Zeb, the Shizar Death Speaker Staff, and then just maintain Mallow, Scent of Decay, and Melozinet, and then keep the ad dotted at all times. Auto attack, auto attack, auto attack. You have plenty of ways to get mana back and manage your mana. You should be fine. This fight does ebb and flow, So you're going to want to use your defensive cooldowns when appropriate. Once you get to phase 2, i.e. 70% health, you're going to pop all of your cooldowns. Rabid Bear, Unity, Ancestral Aid, Mighty Strikes, the whole 9, and just beat him down. Let's talk tips and tricks to step up your entire game with this build. First and foremost, Hand of Death and Life Burn. Hand of Death is a buff that applies to you, and when you break the 80% health threshold, it procs a buff onto yourself, which increases your dot damage. Utilizing something like Life Burn or Cannibalize, you can actually force this effect into play without even worrying about being damaged by an NPC or the enemy. It is important to recognize that Life Burn is also a dot, so you may want to trigger Hand of Death with something like Cannibalize before using Life Burn. This can result in massive damage. Speaking of Cannibalize or Death Bloom, a neat little trick you can do is you can actually pre-cast a heal or a life tap, and because Cannibalize is a AA, you can actually trigger the AA while casting the heal, and thus pressing Cannibalize right before the heal lands and not actually losing all that health. The Demi-Lich Skullcap and Shizar Death Speaker Staff are 2 clicky items that you can utilize to apply life over time apps. And what's fun about these items is that you can cast them on as many targets as you want, and for every target that you hit with it, you gain a new heal over time. So 10 targets means 10 different incoming taps over time. This can heal massive amounts. Illusions and Dispel. This build comes with a lot of illusions, which can be used to block a dispel if casted on you. Essentially, the illusion will be dispelled. And to some extent, it creates a visual notifier that you're being dispelled. So you'll know to recast it or cast another junk buff. There's also audio triggers, which you can utilize to notify you that buffs are being removed or Rage of Ralosek has ended. Perhaps you could use it for when Enrage occurs on an NPC. This build does not have 100% strike through, and so you can actually kill yourself when a mob enrages. Blocked buffs is another thing. You can block some of the illusions. We talked about how, this build has a handful of illusions, and if you go through and you block the bear form portion of Rabid Bear, you'll save yourself some slots. This build can actually hit the buff cap, and so it can be a really good idea to block some of those illusions. Adding the Ragebringer to the pets. A lot of people are going to think this is a kind of a silly one, but honestly, utilizing your pets to add the Ragebringer proc debuff to things is going to increase your damage quite a bit, and it can even allow you to land poison spells on things that you otherwise wouldn't. Don't fall for the trap at popping your melee cooldowns and then casting a bunch of spells, or vice versa. You cast all these dot buffs, dot cooldowns, burns, and then proceed to use all your melee abilities and don't actually cast any dots. You're going to want to make sure you do this. If you don't do this, it's a huge DPS loss in the build, and you're just trolling yourself. Unity, Ancestral Aid, and Rabid Bear are really strong abilities. They can be used both offensively and defensively. You might find early on when you don't have a lot of gear or AA that utilizing them defensively will be very powerful, but eventually, as your gear and AA catch up, you'll be able to use them offensively and use the 100 Hands effect from Rabid Bear, the massive stat steroids from Unity and Ancestral Aid, really lay out the damage. Well, and that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you liked the video. Would you do it differently? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe.